maybe young will be into award-winning series.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense that the most important decision of your life you're making as a baby?
Hi, I am joined by the writer and director of the film Good Boy, which we just released on the main channel.
Check it out and come back to watch the extended interview.
I kind of wanted to ask you off the bat, kind of what was your inspiration for the story and the origin of this whole short film?
Yeah, Good Boy it's a deeply personal story to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of events, characters, storylines that are inspired both from myself and conversations that I've had with people that I love, with family members, with exes, with best friends, with people that are have really helped me grow and figure out who I am over the years. Part of the show, which, the film is based off of a pilot that I wrote for a TV series. It's set in the world of streetwear. Yeah. And that was based off my personal experience. During college, I worked part-time at a sneaker shop in Boston called Bodega, which is this world famous sneaker shop, hidden store. So it was my way to, I think, of being able to talk about all these feelings that I had about my identity and who I was in this crazy world that is streetwear, where there's so many cultures kind of colliding and clashing, and the point of the culture is to figure out what that mess is, and that's the fun of it.
There's this theme of choice, right? And especially when you start with that scene with the Korean doll, and that kind of bookends the whole short film too. I wanted to ask you kind of about exploration of the theme through that kind of tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the money, where I think the core theme of the film is this tension between expectation and choice. How do you navigate that, especially as a Korean American, which I am, or as an Asian American? How do you figure out your path in that space? I think all of it kind of started was I was just talking about the ceremony with my family, with my parents. And, it's one of those things when you grow up as a kid, as a Korean American kid, you kind of joke about it. It's kind of what did you pick? Remember when you were so little and so cute and you picked that thing? How fun. As much as it is a joke and something we laugh about, I think something just clicked in my mind where I was like, it's so weird to me that this choice that you're making that could potentially have professional ramifications is a choice you're making as a one-year-old, as a baby. How does that make any sense that the most important decision of your life you're making as a baby? Yeah. And so I think that weird irony to me was something that I was like, okay, cool, let's explore that. Let's explore why that feels so weird, why that's something that we now as an adult, we joke about, but there's still this kind of hidden, quiet idea of but you could still be that one day. Maybe if you fulfill your destiny, you can be that lawyer because you picked a gavel that one time when you were a tiny child. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to kind of delve into with Good Boy and see why did I feel so complicated about all of those things.
Just even the idea that how you kind of parallel that with young Mizuno's character's choice in this film that he's facing was really nice parallel. It's you worked at Bodega. Obviously, you're Korean American as well, and how much of it do you feel was yourself in this character?
A good amount. Yeah. I think when I started to write Good Boy, I was coming off the backs of trying to write something else that was very okay and market friendly and something that I thought was gonna be really sellable, and basically had the worst time writing it and was just okay, this is not the way to go. So when I started writing Good Boy, I made a promise to myself of being okay, if I'm going to write this, let's try to write the most personal, vulnerable thing, the thing I would not want to show my parents or show my sister or show my best friends, and what are all the things that I would want to say to someone or that I have said to someone that I either, think about a lot or maybe I regret a little bit. And so I think that's what I went into Good Boy with, of trying to be how can we get into those conversations a little bit and unpack it about why I'm so happy about certain things, why I'm so scared about certain things, why I'm so sad about certain things. And hopefully maybe there's a story there that we can explore that will resonate with some people.
No, definitely. Speaking of parents too, one of my favorite scenes in the short film was the two dinners and the split screen. I thought that that style too and that choice was really interesting and provided a lot of depth.
Thanks. Yeah.
When did that come into the picture for you?
That came pretty early. I think I knew that I wanted to do something with two parents that are slowly drifting apart and going through their own relationship. And we're seeing them not just as parents, but we're seeing them as two people in a relationship trying to make the relationship work, and us as a viewer not really understanding or knowing if it's going to work out between them. I think it closely mirrored, I think, my own upbringing of growing up and just starting to see my family and my parents and starting to see them more as human beings and as people that, as much as I love them, they go through their own issues and they have their own conflicts. And I think I had kind of noticed sometimes when, when I was going through some conflicts with them when they were going through some conflicts with each other, I would have dinner with one and dinner with another and realize we're saying the same, I'm having the same dinner experience, but we're saying it differently to each other depending on who's talking to who. And I think that to me was something where I was like, I think that would be a really interesting thing to show on screen and be able to use a split screen to kind of say, hey, we're all talking around these problems, but we all know that there's a problem, but there are things that we can't because of culture, because of family, because of whatever. I can't just full out come out and ask you about. I think hopefully, when shooting the scene, trying to show that reality of trying to deal with that type of tension in your household.
Even though I didn't experience that personally, I felt like I could kind of empathize too, and I was just curious the whole time. I was like, I'm curious if your parents saw this, or like, and you're speaking about how just approaching it too. You're coming from a place of like, you want to make something that is kind of deeply personal and uncomfortable, and I think that is a good way to approach filmmaking, right? I feel like if it is kind of pushing you to an edge, where your point where you're not sure if you want to share it with people, you're probably doing something right. It's probably hitting like a really deep place.
For sure.
Was there a reaction from your family when they eventually watched it?
I know that they've seen it.
Yeah.
They have told me that they've seen it. They've seen it more than once, which I think to me is a plus. Is cool and exciting and something that I don't think I really necessarily expected out of them. I think this whole journey of writing and directing and working in film and in TV, I think is something that's been an ongoing conversation in our family. And I think they've seen it, and I think I do think they appreciate certain elements of truth in the dynamic of seeing a son with his parents that are going through those types of things. We've talked about too, there's the idea that they're obviously seeing it knowing that this is my perspective of what their relationship looked like, or what a relationship looks like. We haven't had the full unpacking yet. But we've had acknowledgments
it's a start
of what this could possibly mean in the way that we talk about love and family and relationships. But
it's really an ongoing conversation. I think
ongoing.
And the fact that you have like this kind of this focal point where that can expand is really nice too.
It's a nice excuse, I think. I think now that the film is out and now that people can see it, and people that I'm close to have seen it, it's a nice, easy way to kind of get into some of these conversations, because now they can just say, I saw the scene. What did you mean by this? Can we unpack it? Rather than just, knowing that they may not even have known that these certain things were in my heart or in my mind. But now we kind of have a thing to talk about as a way to talk about all the other things.
So just to take it back, I also wanted to ask you about like production and specifically the casting process. The star of this short film is Young Mazzino, who is also in Beef. What was the process of just getting him on board? Yeah,
Young came across into my life in a very just kind of serendipitous way. I think when getting ready for Good Boy, obviously the character of June is loosely, I would say, inspired by like my life and the things that I've gone through. And initially I was a little worried. I think the character of June is this kind of sensitive, vulnerable character who I think, has this kind of quiet confidence to him and is searching for something that he wants. And we had about 60 plus submissions of people who sent in tapes and responded to the casting call. And then basically I had an actor friend who introduced me to Young and sent me, they had done Stella Adler together in New York. And so she had sent me a tape of his that he had done for a different audition. I thought that was great. And so I just cold emailed him, asked him, if he was interested in auditioning. At that time, he was kind of hanging out in Maryland, sitting on his couch, kind of wondering, what his next opportunity was going to be. I thought he was great. I think right from the get-go, it was very clear that he had a certain talent and a certain kind of vulnerability to him. The audition, the size that we gave him was that last speech in front of the poll and everything, where he's kind of taking agency in his life. And so I think as soon as I saw Young do that speech on tape, I think that's when I kind of knew. I was like, this is the guy.
We found him.
Yeah, we found him. Thank the
No,
universe.
for sure. And it's been cool to see him explode onto the scene through Beef.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
What has your perspective been on that? It's
been so great to see. I mean, I think like right from the get-go of Good Boy, at least, I think, I very passionately believed in Young and thought that, man, I was like, this guy is very talented. And I think he has something that I haven't seen very often, especially from, Asian male talent in this industry. And so I was so excited when I heard that he had booked Beef and knew that he was going to do an amazing, amazing job.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's been just so rewarding to see that his talent get recognized again and again. And I feel like he has a bright, bright future, and I can't wait to see how much he grows.
For sure. And you do too. This is a great film. And I know that you mentioned maybe on the side, but this is actually started off as a pilot, right?
Right.
So this could potentially develop into a longer form series?
That's the hope. So when Good Boy originally started, I wrote it as a half-hour dramedy pilot. This was, my attempt to write like a Insecure, Master of None, Rami, Atlanta type show, like a grounded, a little quirky, some off-kilter type things, but saying something about the culture and about, identity and about who anyone is and how do they discover their agency in their lives.
Yeah.
And it was workshopped at a episodic lab at Sundance.
Yeah.
And so, we've gone through some rigors, and I think, it's been moving along nicely. Making the short and making the film was my way of being like, okay, let's take it from the script and from the theoretical, and let's show people how fun this world is, how vibrant it is, how colorful it is, how emotional it can be. And maybe we end up finding someone who wants to take it the next step further.
Yeah, and we're rooting for you too, and this whole series. Yeah, I would love to see that and like fully realized as its own series. And yeah, maybe Young Mazino will be in 2 award-winning series at one
That'd be
point.
cool. That'd be cool. Yeah,
wouldn't
be mad about it.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Just so our audience knows, you are also the creator of hashtag Starring John Cho, all the way back in 2016, which was a huge kind of like movement at that time for representation. And like, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on just maybe any parallels you had going to creating that, and maybe parallels that you had going into this short film.
Yeah, I mean, hashtag Starring John Cho was such a crazy time in my life. It started as just this kind of like side project that I did, ended up becoming this kind of global movement. I think was something that was really surprising, and frankly is the whole reason why I ended up pivoting away from my previous career, which was in advertising, and moving into this world, into screenwriting and directing. Just seeing the response to it and realizing that now is the time to be telling our stories and be able to invest in the community and try to participate and make a difference in that kind of capacity. I think when going into Good Boy, I did think about hashtag Starring John Cho a lot. I think in my way of trying to show, I think the purpose of the social movement was to kind of show that Asian representation can take all kinds of forms. You can, as much as we would love to see someone like John as like Captain America or Mission Impossible or something like that. I think what's so great about those posters that I made was trying to make posters with rom-coms in it, in 500 Days of Summer, or in a more, not as quite a splashy type of a movie.
Yeah.
And so going into Good Boy, I think for me, what was important was trying to show, how can we show some nuances of this world, of this character? How can we kind of push back on some of the tropes or some of the ways in which we've typically seen, Asian 20-somethings on screen? And so that to me was really exciting for Good Boy for me. I think, the story of a Asian American person deciding between their dreams and the safe choices in their life is, I think, a very common thing. It's a very universal thing that I think we've all at some point kind of gone through.
For sure.
But what I hope with Good Boy is that the ways in which we see him unpack his decisions, the way we see him grapple with his on-again, off-again girlfriend, the way we see him try to connect with his Black best friend who he's known all his life, but is realizing that they have fundamental differences of how they see the world. That to me is what I hope people take away as he tries to figure out, who he is and what his path is going to be. And that to me is what's exciting. Try to delve into those questions and get into a little bit of that that hope that we all want to have in our daily lives.
And we're looking forward to kind of following your work too and see you explore those questions as well. And if you're looking for ways to support William in all his work, we'll provide links down below.